All right, let's bring you this developing story now. Despite warnings that South Africa's dilapidated rail network was not ready, the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, Prasa, last month signed a locomotive lease deal and relaunched long-distance trains with disastrous consequences for festive season travellers. Now, according to a report by the Sunday Times, trains began running on the 15th of December, quickly clocking up 90 hours of delays involving 22 trips and incurring possibly irregular and fruitless expenditure. More than 600 commuters found themselves stranded in the middle of nowhere, in some cases for days, because of broken infrastructure caused by cable theft and vandalism. So let's unpack the story now with Prasa spokesperson Andiswa Makhanda, who joined us via our video link this morning. Andiswa, thanks very much indeed for your time. So just to clarify, the lease for these trains was signed when there were warnings about the rail network not being ready. Why?
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me. I wouldn't say that it was signed before there were warnings. I think the lease agreement was signed in October when we were preparing. I mean, we had approached Treasury in May already to get approval for deviation to lease these locomotives so that we can have a continuous and uninterrupted service. This happened already in May last year, so it is incorrect to say that the lease was assigned before we had looked at preparations or before readiness. It is totally inaccurate.
But I mean, on the face of it, given, all right, you'll tell us as a start whether the Sunday Times article is accurate when it describes the kinds of delays, 90 hours of delays involving 22 trips, passengers stranded for days. If this is true, then clearly the network wasn't ready.
We did all that we could to get the network ready. The Sunday Times is correct that there were delays that were experienced during the travel journey. Part of the problem that we are experiencing as Prasa is theft and vandalism. You fix one line, another line is vandalized, or criminals are there stealing our OHTE cables, stealing our signaling systems. So the service in itself was ready. What we didn't anticipate was the extent of theft and vandalism that would affect the service in itself en route to the Eastern Cape.
Let's talk about the process of leasing these locomotives. Was due process followed?
Yes, I can start by saying that last year in May we did approach National Treasury for approval to deviate. We gave them a list of 6 companies that we wanted to open the bidding process to. We got the approval. National Treasury understood the urgency at which we needed to resume the service. We got the approval a few days later from National Treasury for deviation. We sent out requests for quotations to 6 companies that were supplied to National Treasury. 1 company responded, and that is the company that we are leasing the locomotives from. So I can say that due process was followed.
And this 130 million rand, is that figure correct for the leasing of the locomotives?
I can say that it's a bit premature right now to put a figure into the leasing of the locomotives because we haven't even received the invoices from the service that we had just resumed. What the article does, it creates an impression that we spent 130 million rand for the December service, which is incorrect. We have not even received any invoices. We are still going to process the invoices. It's a bit premature to put a price tag and say the service cost 130 million rand. And that is what we want to clarify, that it was not 130 million rand to run the December service.
Another allegation that the article makes is that your former CEO, Zolani Matthews, had actually been reluctant to sign this 11-month lease, warning exactly of the issues that we've been discussing, this serious lack of infrastructure. Is that true, that the deal was finalized just days after he was fired?
That is inaccurate because we do have documentation where the former CEO, Mr. Matthews, had signed on the appointment of the supplier, and that was in October 2021. That was just months before he left the company. So it is incorrect to say that he was reluctant to sign on the leasing of these locomotives.
You know,
and you must also...
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
Michelle?
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that the process of the leasing, that had to be done in conjunction with ensuring that the lines are ready for us to operate. And that was the preparation that went into resuming the service come December. So there was ample enough time to operate, to check the readiness of the line. What we also need to put forward and clarify is that some of the routes to Eastern Cape, majority of it runs on the Transnet line. And so we are also dependent. Transnet is our supplier. We are Transnet's client. We are also dependent on Transnet to ensure that their lines are also ready for the train to run on their tracks. And unfortunately, it's a societal problem. Transnet was also affected by theft and vandalism on their lines. We were working every day with Transnet to make sure that we intensify security on that lines. We clear the cable, the low-hanging cables that were a result of vandalism and theft. So the challenge runs across our entities. Theft and vandalism is something that we need a different approach in dealing with, because you fix here, tomorrow it's gone, you fix on another line, 3 days later it's vandalized, they've stolen some cables, they've stolen some signaling equipment, and it's a very, very huge inconvenience, and it comes at a very huge cost to our passengers, to us as Prasa, Transnet, and all other entities and the country as a whole.
So the issue of the failing infrastructure and vandalism is one thing, but there are also reports from people who were part of this group of people who were stranded over the December period, who talk about, unbearable stenches on the trains, non-flushing toilets, no running water. That's a completely different issue to the vandalism that you're describing.
I can say, Michelle, the article quoted a gentleman who took the train with his mother to Cape Town. I can say that for sure that we were not running trains to Cape Town. We were, the last time, if I remember, the last time we ran trains to Cape Town may have been March last year. This may have been a passenger that rode on the train last year in March. But in December, all our trains were up to standard. We had water, flushable toilets. And so I don't want to discount the experience of the gentleman that was quoted in the Sunday Times, but I can say that we were not running trains to Cape Town. We had flushing toilets. We had water. There was no stench on our trains. Our contingency plan included providing food to our passengers, included constant communication. It included offering alternative transportation at our cost, to no cost to the passengers. We had to complete the trip using bus services. We did all we could to manage the situation, to make the situation bearable, because it came at a huge inconvenience to our passengers. And it's very important that we regain the trust of our passengers so that we can regain patronage on our lines. Because what is very important is that the train service needs to constantly operate. It needs to constantly run. It needs to be constantly busy so that it mitigates, it minimizes people coming in to steal the railway track. Because if trains are not operational, then it leaves it open to criminals to come and steal our infrastructure.
Yeah. You're not doing very well, are you, given what unfolded in December in terms of regaining trust and regaining patronage? What's the way forward here?
The way forward, Michelle, is that we need to fix the infrastructure. We need to intensify our security deployment. We need all law enforcement agencies to come together to work in protecting our infrastructure. As we speak right now, we are devising another security plan to make sure that our infrastructure is protected. What we also want to intensify is sending a trolley down the railway track just to look at the infrastructure ahead of the trains, so that if there are any problems, we can quickly dispatch teams to fix it before the trains come. Our next train service will run on Friday. That is the service that we hope that we will start seeing the fruits of all the hard work that has been put together. We are working with Transnet, we're working with all other stakeholders to ensure that we fix the infrastructure, we protect the infrastructure so that our passengers are not inconvenienced, so that we can regain that trust, so that we can regain our patronage, because we need to constantly run that service. It is a social service. Our people in South Africa need alternative, affordable transportation. And the service that we offer is very affordable. I mean, we had passengers bemoaning the high cost of bus between provinces, the high cost of taxis between provinces. And so with our service, it's just 300 Rand. You can travel from Johannesburg to the Eastern Cape. You can bring along your bulk luggage, you can bring along furniture, you can bring along goods and services. And I think that's the role that rail should be playing, to ensure that we play a meaningful role in socio-economic development and livelihoods. A lot of our passengers also encompass small business owners, entrepreneurs, hawkers, who have been strangled by the high cost of bus fares to transport their goods. And here's the train service that allows for bulk luggage to be transported on the train.
Yeah.
Even your vehicles can be booked on the train.
Yeah. I think your message is through loud and clear. Andiswa Makhanda, let me thank you for your time this morning. Prasa spokesperson, certainly in all our interests that the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa gets its house in order.